Chapter 48. Jason and Dennis were sitting in the waiting room, waiting for a doctor to speak with them. This doctor wasn't a typical doctor, though. The night before, Diana had made a call to Admiral Brinstock's office, telling him they had a pretty good idea why the aliens died, but they needed an expert medical opinion on what the nature and treatment of the malady would be. The fact that they were asking for not only a medical opinion, but also a treatment plan, wasn't lost on the Admiral. After thinking about it, he decided more information was always useful in devising a battle plan. So with one call, Jason and Dennis were almost instantly on the fastest jet Kenji could find, bound for Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. Located in Bethesda, Maryland, Walter Reed was the nexus for the best of the best when it came to medical treatment for both military and civilian alike. Even several United States presidents routinely used it for medical needs. Within a few minutes after arriving, the door to the waiting room opened, and a nurse entered indicating they should follow her. Walking down the hallway, they were taken not to an examination room, but rather to an office, where Dr. Bruce was waiting for them. Seeing the two men enter, he got up from his desk and came around to shake their hands.
"Gentlemen, my name is Dr. Bruce, but you can call me Jim."
"Thanks, Jim," said Jason. "I'm Dr. Marsalis, and this is Dr. Green. I go by Jason, and this is Dennis."
"Jason, Dennis, nice to meet you. I have to say, regardless of your medical conditions, it's got to take something special to have the administrator of this center make me drop everything to meet with you."
"Jim, I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of things being national secrets," responded Jason. "I can't tell you the whole backstory on this, but what I can tell you is that there isn't anything medically wrong with us. We have a video recording of an individual who is clearly sick. We need you to observe his symptoms and, to the best of your ability, render not only a diagnosis but also a treatment plan."
"You want me to render a diagnosis without a personal examination and with no blood work?"
asked Jim. "I know it's very unorthodox, and that your diagnosis could be wrong with the unavoidable limitations forced on you. But we've been told you're the best infectious disease specialist in the country. We've been assured that if anybody is going to get it right with the cards stacked against them, you will," said Jason.
"Well, as Mae West said, flattery will get you everywhere, gentlemen,"
replied a smiling Dr. Bruce. Dennis reached into his satchel and produced a portable DVD player. Turning on the power and pressing play, a heavily edited portal recording of the Spaniard was shown to Dr. Bruce. Jason and Dennis were prepared to show him about 15 minutes of video, but apparently it only took about 5 minutes for Jim to think he knew what was wrong with the guy. He took another 5 minutes watching the screen to be sure of his initial diagnosis.
"When I was in medical school," said Jim, "one of the professors found out I was going to specialize in infectious disease, and since that was his specialty, he took me under his wing. Through the semesters, we would spend a lot of time after class going over different symptomologies. I would try to trip him up with some obscure disease, and he would do the same to me. We sharpened each other, and I attribute my proficiency in the field to all the mentoring he gave me. One afternoon in his class, he plied me with a list of symptoms and said if I was able to get it right, then he would pass me on the spot. He thought he'd be able to trip me up by giving me the symptoms of 2 diseases occurring in a patient at the same time. To make a long story short," said Jim, "I figured out what was wrong and immediately received a passing grade in his class. Your patient could be dealing with one of 2 things. He could be dealing with pneumonic plague."
Jim seemed to be thinking for a while, then he continued,
"Or he could be dealing with a combination of 2 other diseases, typhoid fever, and pneumonia. In my educated opinion, I think it's the latter, not the former.
What he didn't mention was he chose the latter because pneumonic plague was extremely rare and hadn't been a serious problem for centuries. Is there a treatment? Jason asked.
Sure there is, but you gotta understand, I may be way off on this. I'll need to directly examine the patient before I can write a script for the antibiotic. Can't have this guy sue me in case he is allergic or in case I have it wrong.
Unfortunately, responded Jason, for reasons of national security, a direct examination isn't going to be possible. What I can tell you is there is absolutely no chance of this guy bringing litigation against you in any way, shape, or form. The doctor sat there looking at the two men for a few seconds before responding.
Normally, this is when I would show you the door and explain how sorry I am that I won't be able to help you. But before you got here, I received very pointed instructions from the hospital administrator telling me there was to be nothing held back from you, gentlemen. Whatever you requested, I was to give without question. I have to tell you, this is a first for me, and I am profoundly uncomfortable writing a prescription under these circumstances.
Dennis spoke up, saying, Actually, we're going to need a little more than just medicine for him.
Oh?
Said Jim. Yes, replied Jason. We're going to need to learn how to make the medicine. Jim got a rather perplexed look on his face, wondering how many people needed to be cured of this, and if there was an outbreak somewhere that was really serious. Working in a military hospital meant he was no stranger to secrecy in the name of national security. He knew he needed to comply without question. Beginning with a few calls, Jason and Dennis immediately met with manufacturers, gaining the knowledge on how to formulate the needed medicine. Jason took a generous supply of the medicine with him and all the necessary information to be able to formulate it in the field. Eventually, Jason and Dennis made their way onto the military Learjet and settled in for the trip home. The plane was normally used for shuttling around various members of the military brass, so it was fitted with all the latest in communication technology, including an encrypted line which could be used for secure telephone calls. Now that the diagnosis was made and the means for helping had been secured, there was only one thing left to do for today. Jason and Dennis had discussed this contingency on the way out to Maryland earlier that same day. Since things had gone the way they did, a call had to be made. Jason picked up the phone and dialed the Pentagon. Yes, I'd like to speak with Admiral Brinstock, please. No, I don't want to leave a message. Please connect me to the Admiral. Yes, I know he's a very busy man, but I am pretty sure if you impede my call to him, you will instantly be out of a job. My name is Dr. Jason Marsalis. Sure, I'll hold. Jason looked over to Dennis, who had this grin on his face he always got when either he or Jason was playing cat and mouse with some military lackey. Yes? Thank you. Jason looked back to Dennis and smirked. Apparently, someone got their hands slapped. Soon a new voice came on the line.
This is Admiral Brinstock,
said Kenji. Hello, Admiral. This is Dr. Jason Marsalis, and I am calling on a secure line. As soon as Jason said this, there was no response from Kenji, who reached over and pressed a special button on his phone that allowed for scrambler technology to be employed, scrambling the voice signal between the two phones equipped with it.
Scrambler link established, and our conversation is secure. Jason, how are you doing? I trust you received the cooperation you needed at Walter Reed?
The syrupy Admiral was back, and Jason began to have the sense of nausea. Yes, Admiral. Whatever strings you pulled were effective. As soon as we got there, we were met by the world's most eminent infectious disease specialist, replied Jason.
Great, great. So, are you going to tell me why I had to call in some favors for you two now?
Diana Olaney, Dr. Green, and I have spent many nights and days on this project, working hard at tracing back what happened to the inhabitants of the island, answered Jason. We found the pivotal event in their history which led to their race being decimated.
And what was that?
Well, sir, replied Jason, for a reason we can't specifically determine because we don't know their language, it appears a human landed on the island in the 1400s, and when he did, he brought with him a plague that wiped out the entire population.
You're telling me these aliens died of a disease that we brought them? We killed them?
Yes, sir. That is exactly what I'm telling you. This is why we needed to consult the best of the best when it came to infectious diseases. We showed him a highly edited video of the human who landed on the island and asked him to make a diagnosis without performing a physical examination.
What did you find out?
Asked Kenji. It turns out he was infected with typhoid fever coupled with pneumonia.
Wow. So that's what took them out. Why couldn't they just take an alien pill or something?
As I said earlier, answered Jason, we weren't able to understand the language the alien race was speaking, so I can't answer that particular question. We were asking it ourselves, but we were unable to derive a satisfying answer from our observations.
Okay, so we know what killed them, but what do we do now?
Wondered the Admiral. He was saying it more to himself than posing a question. The next step we took was securing a large supply of the medicine to cure those conditions, answered Jason, along with the equipment and materials needed to synthesize more of the medicine.
Medicine?
Exclaimed the Admiral.
Why would we need medicine for this? One thing I do know from my medical corpsman training is bugs like that won't survive 600 or 700 years. We're just not at risk anymore.
Jason looked over once again at Dennis, who was no longer wearing a grin, but rather showing misgivings over what they were about to share with Kenji. Dennis didn't like him any more than Jason did, and he knew the next words out of Jason's mouth were probably a bad idea. Unavoidable, but still a bad idea. The medicine isn't for us, Admiral, said Jason.
I'm not following you, son,
said Kenji. The medicine we have secured, and the technology we have secured to synthesize it, is for the aliens.
Run that past me one more time?
Admiral, the portal not only has the ability to allow the viewing of events in the past anywhere in the world, it also allows us to go there. Remember that video of your graduation from the United States Naval Academy at Annapolis, Maryland?
Yes,
said Kenji, with a tone mirroring the questioning look on his face at that moment. Admiral, we personally shot that using a disguised video camera which looked like a film camera from that period. The portal can transport things, even people, to any place on the globe at any point in time. There was a very long pause while the Admiral strained to wrap his mind around this new revelation. It was evident that the facade Kenji had been putting on up to this point fell, and was now shattered into pieces on the floor. He could only respond with 2 words.
God Almighty.
Continuing, Jason said, "We intend to go back in time before the human lands on the island, meet the aliens, and explain to them what is about to take place. We intend on giving them the medicine so they won't get sick, so they will be around to keep that machine in working order." As soon as Jason said this, Dennis got a concerned look on his face that Jason couldn't quite read. He knew Dennis was tacitly in agreement with everything he had said to the Admiral, but suddenly there seemed to be something bothering Dennis a lot. Meanwhile, Kenji was reeling at what Jason had just revealed.
Are you telling me that not only do we know what went wrong, we also can correct the problem and clear the way for the machine on the island to be maintained, thus counteracting the imminent threat in Yellowstone?
He asked. Yes, Admiral, responded Jason. That is exactly what I am saying. The thing is, if I'm going to do this, I need to know as much as possible about the aliens. When you were in our offices, you mentioned having an expert on these aliens. I'd like to meet with your expert and get as much information as I can about them before I go back in time to fix this mess. Without saying anything in reply, Kenji reached over to his intercom and hit a very well-used button.
Stephanie, make immediate arrangements to transfer Doctors Marsalis and Green to the headquarters for Project Pylon.
The tinny voice on the other end of the intercom replied quickly, Right away, sir. An immediate tone indicated the intercom had turned off. Project Pylon? Asked Jason.
That is the code name we have affixed to the island,
replied Kenji.
So I can use personnel who aren't cleared for the details to still help with some of the more mundane tasks.
There was another pause, then Kenji asked,
So you're telling me we have a real chance to fix this?
Yes, sir, replied Jason.
Son, you just made my day. You've got a stake in your future, and it's on me,
said Kenji. The syrup was back. Thank you, Admiral.
Don't think anything of it. Stephanie will be back in touch with the details on getting you there. Plan on being there tomorrow.
Sounds good, Admiral.
All right. We'll talk soon. Over and out,
said Kenji. Over and out, mimicked Jason, hanging up the phone. Looking over to Dennis, Jason said, Well, it's done. We're going to the alien island. Looks like it, said Dennis. After thinking about the task at hand, Jason's thoughts about the Admiral congealed. Dennis, I need to say something to you that I'm not planning on saying to anybody else. What's that? Asked Dennis. I know it isn't a shock to you that there's something fishy about the Admiral. He's being nice to us nowadays, but he's too nice. I trust him about as much as I can throw him. He's up to something. I don't know what it is, but my spidey sense tells me he's biding his time, waiting for the right moment to do something. And that something might be something I wouldn't necessarily like. With me going back in time, I'm going to need you to watch my back. You got it, pal, said Dennis. Oh well, at least we get to spend time in a tropical paradise, Jason said. Looking over at Dennis again, Jason expected to see a look of elation at the prospect of visiting the island. Instead, he saw a look of intense thought on his partner's face. It was the same look he had noticed earlier when he was talking to the Admiral. Lost in his own thoughts, Dennis didn't respond. What is it, bud? Jason asked. We need to talk about this trip of yours, Dennis replied. It just occurred to me that we are trying to open up and stop a ticking nuclear bomb, and all we have are hammers. Jason was stymied at why Dennis was thinking this way, and the look on his face said so. Dennis began to elaborate. Here's the deal. If and when you go back in time, you can't just give them the medicine and then come home. It's not going to be that simple, said Dennis. Why is that? Because you will be manufacturing your very own grandfather paradox, answered Dennis. As soon as he said that, the entire reason for Dennis's concern was blatantly obvious. If Jason went back there and cured any malady the aliens had, and they continued to live, that would alter the timeline for this planet so completely, it'd be likely Jason would never have been born. The portal would never have been built, so the volcano would erupt, and so on. This set Jason back on his heels. "I'm stunned I didn't see this myself," said Jason. "Don't feel bad. That particular load of bricks didn't fall on my head until just now," consoled Dennis. The two men pondered how this new wrinkle could, and probably should, alter their plans. But how? They needed to fix the machine, which meant the aliens needed to be cured. Naturally, that meant the aliens would still be alive. The solution wasn't immediately evident to either of them. "I just hope this expert knows his stuff," Jason said. "Her stuff." "Come again?" asked Jason. "The expert is a woman," said Dennis. "Archaeologist, actually. I've been reading a lot of the material from that USB stick the Admiral gave us, and a lot of the material in there is from her, Dr. Terry Lindstrom."
Hey, fellow Galimarians, this is Dan Adrian, and I just wanted to say thank you for listening to my book. If you can, please click like down below because it really helps me bring these videos to you and lets me know what you like. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe and click on the bell so that you'll get notified when I release more chapters. If you have any questions about this or any other of my books, or if you want to know more about what it takes to write a novel like this one, please make sure you leave your question in the comments below. Thanks again. I'll see you soon.